What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. We're still doing 3 videos a week right now, so we don't want you to miss out on any of those future videos. So make sure you hit that subscribe, turn the notifications on, all that good stuff, so you don't miss out on any future bass fishing content. That's what this channel is all about, is helping you guys catch more bass. So definitely appreciate you guys tuning in, and hopefully you can learn something from this video. But today we're going to talk about one of the more underlooked baits, kind of sneaky baits in the Yamamoto baits lineup. It doesn't really get talked about much anymore, but it's still something that I utilize in specific situations. We're going to kind of walk you through. We're getting to be that time of year right now, and I'm going to kind of walk you through, show you some rigging techniques, talk all about this bait that's kind of been overlooked here recently. So you want to make sure you stay tuned and see if you guys are throwing this bait from Yamamoto. All right, guys, so this bait I'm talking about right here, let's see, can you guess? This is the Yamamoto Fat Ika. Ika? What do you call this? Basically, this is a solid, I would call it more of a tube profile bait, but it is solid. It's not hollow like a tube. But basically, it has a little hula grub skirt. Hula skirt? Is that what they call this? I forget what they call this. But basically, it has a soft plastic skirt molded into the end of the bait that gives it some unique action, a unique profile, and you can rig it multiple different ways. So this is an extremely overlooked bait. You know, not a lot of people are throwing this anymore, but this is still something that I utilize. So let's dive in, give you the whole rundown on the whole equipment that I use for this bait, where I'm throwing it, that type of stuff. So here we have one rigged up, or not rigged up right here. This is a bait that we're gonna rig up right here. But let's start with the hook. So I like to throw, if you guys follow me and you know, I really do not like these style hooks, the EWG style hooks. I am not a fan of this style hook, but this is one bait that you need to use this style hook with a wider gap right here in order for that thick bait to be able to collapse so you get a hook on it. So right off the bat, let's start with a little hook tip. This is something that, you know, because I'm not necessarily a fan of this style hook, I actually like to tweak it a little bit to make the hookup ratio a little bit better. So the one I just showed you was actually already modified, and the one I just took out of the package is not. So hopefully you can see the difference here, and I'll show you what I like to do. So these are the exact same hook, but you can see I added a whole bunch of gap in the one I already had out. So if I match these two up, let's hold that still right there. If I match those up, you can see the difference in the gap. And that is simply by bending it out slightly. So I take me a pair of pliers like this. So basically, I want that hook point to be facing up a little bit more than facing down. So this one, the hook point is in line with the line tie. So I can lay my finger straight across there. Hopefully you can see that. I can lay my finger straight across there. The one that I modified, I can lay my finger on there and look, it's gonna catch my finger. So I added a little bit of gap, and it helps hook a few more of those fish. So here's a brand new hook right out of the package. I take a pair of pliers and I grab it right here. You see right below that bend, and I'm gonna open that up like that, okay? So basically that just opened up that bend right there. Now when I run my finger up there, he's gonna get caught. So you just added that little bit of extra security to help you hook that fish. So that's a little tip right there when you take a brand new EWG style hook out of the package. Like these are the Trocar Magworm hook. This is the TK 125. I like the 3/0 size for this Fat Ika style bait, but various sizes on there. But the cool thing about the Magworm hook, you know, it's a little bit heavier gauge wire. so it's not going to straighten out. You could throw this on a little bit heavier line, 15, 20-pound line if you want to. But I really like this little bait keeper on the top of the magworm. So you can see that little plastic bait keeper up there really helps keep your bait solid on the head of the bait. Really keeps it locked in there. And that little keeper does a lot. You would be surprised what that little keeper can hold onto your bait. So we went through the hook. This is the magworm hook. That's what I'm using for these fat Ica style baits. Now there's a couple different ways you could rig this. Now you could just rig this on a standard Texas rig. Say you have a 1/4 ounce weight pegged at the top, just a little bullet weight, flipping weight, something like that. And you can just rig him essentially just like you would a tube and flip him around. He's going to have a unique gliding action because of the profile. And then he has that hula skirt on the end to add a little action. But that's one way, you know, you would have a tungsten weight, lead weight, whatever, pegged at the top and just kind of flip him around just like a creature style bait. Now, there is a bunch of other ways you can rig this bait. So this bait was actually designed to be fished upside down. So this is almost of a backslide bait where he slides this, he sinks this way and that skirt is at the top and you kind of work him up this way. So to rig it up that way, you know, you're going to use the same hook, but generally speaking, you're going to want just a hook, no weight. You're not going to want a bullet weight on here. You're going to want just the hook rigged up into this bait. And if you want to add some weight, we'll dive into that here in a second. So you're just going to go through right top of the head where the skirt connects to the bait, come out your little 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch or so, wherever you want the bend of your hook to come out, pull that little keeper through so he locks that bait in there like that. And now you're going to rig him up backwards like this with the body of the bait down and the skirt material up. And actually, as you pull him, he's going to come up this way. So it's a very unique looking profile, and it actually catches a lot of fish. This is my preferred way of rigging this bait right here. So this plastic, it's heavy enough that you could throw it just like this. You could throw it weightless. It's going to sink. It's going to get down to where you need it to be. But if for some reason you wanted to make it a little bit heavier, get it down a little bit quicker, what you can do is take I got one right here. I got a couple right here actually. You could take a nail weight. So here's a couple different options. You know, this one's, as you get into more of the screw lock style, they get a little bit heavier weights, even up to, you know, 1/4 of an ounce if you wanted to really heavy up or, you know, make this bait a lot heavier that you could get it to sink in one place. Or you could just add, you know, I think this is a 1/16 of an ounce nail weight here. I think this one is 1/8. It says it right on it, 1/8 of an ounce. So it's a little bit heavier. You can screw him in there. But basically you take your little nail weight and now you're going to jam it in the top. You don't want to jam it up where your line tie is. You want to jam it down here, kind of where, you know, your hook went through the bait, and just put him through the head of that bait. So now it's just a little added weight, so he's going to sink down faster and help you get down to those fish a little bit quicker. So situations I'm throwing this bait. Let's dive into that. You know, it's kind of a unique bait. I really like throwing this when the bass are shallow. Obviously, when they're out in the middle of the lake feeding on shad, you know, throughout the winter, throughout the fall, that type of stuff, I'm not going to be throwing a bait like this. But whenever the bass are shallow, you know, in that springtime, maybe even in the summertime when the bass are around bluegill beds, this is an excellent sneaky little bait to get you some more bites. So for me, I really like throwing this around pieces of cover. You know, whether it's a docks, this skips extremely well. So if you're looking for a unique bait to put under a dock or around highly pressured, you know, laydowns or stumps, or, you know, just places that you know people are fishing, and a target where you can throw this bait and let it sink right next to something where you think it's going to get a bite, that's where this bait excels. This is not a bait to be throwing out over expansive, you know, flat points or, you know, big gravel bars or whatever. This is something that you want to throw at a target and let it sink right to where the target is. So you just had a bee land on your head.
Is he still there?
He's crawling in your hair, yeah.
Get him out, baby. I don't know. I don't want him in there.
He's just crawling on the top of your
I
head.
don't want him in there.
Hang on. I don't know how to get him out.
Don't smack me. Just the squishing.
There, he flew away. Brittany just had a bee land on her head while we're filming, so had to make sure that she didn't get stung in the top of the head. That was interesting. I don't know how a bee got into our garage, but we had the door open yesterday. I guess he snuck in there. But like I said, this is not a bait you want to be just kind of casting out over open water on places, you know, kind of dragging him around. This is something you want to throw at a target where you think you're going to get a bite, and it gives them a totally unique profile, a different bait they haven't seen, and it really gets some bites. So excellent bait for, you know, fry guarding fish when they're around boat docks or stumps or whatever it may be, guarding that fry. The way this bait falls and has this unique action when you pull it really triggers a lot of bites when the bass are guarding fry. So don't sleep on the fat Ica. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it still catches a lot of bass for me and a lot of bass for other guys out on the professional level. And it doesn't get talked about quite a lot. So if you guys haven't thrown the fat Ica, make sure you drop it in the comments below. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this rig, this setup, if you've heard of this, if you've thrown this, curious on all of that. So make sure you drop it in the comments down below. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, leave those likes, comments, good stuff down below, and we'll see you guys next time.